Welcome back to another captivating movie recap. Fontaine and his gang survive on selling drugs. One afternoon, while he's training, Junebug, a young boy in the neighborhood, brings news that some dealers are selling drugs in his corner. Fontaine and Junebug head to the corner. When he spots the guy, he hits him with his car, breaking his leg. Fontaine then snatches the money from him and drives away. When Fontaine leaves, the guy calls his boss, Isaac, and tells him what Fontaine did. Fontaine gives Junebug his cut and hits the shop where he always buys a bottle of malt liquor and a lottery ticket, but he gets no luck. Leaving, he pours Frog, an old man who's always in front of the shop, a sip of the liquor. At home, Fontaine watches a picture of his little brother who passed on. He then makes sandwiches and offers his mom her share, but she rejects it and doesn't come out of the room. Minutes later, Moss arrives at Fontaine's house with the money he made from selling the drugs. Fontaine notices that the money isn't complete, and without wasting time, he heads to Slick's house to collect the rest. Isaac follows Fontaine around to hurt him just as he did to his boy. Slick is a pimp. Yo-Yo is tired of working for a pimp and packs her belongings to leave. She meets Fontaine outside and tells him where Slick is. Slick begs Fontaine to give him some days to pay up his money, but he loses patience and begins to search through Slick's belongings. He finds some money in Slick's wardrobe and takes it away. On his way back home, Isaac and his guy confront him and end his life. Fontaine is awoken from a terrible dream and feels his chest to be sure he is alive. As usual, he heads to the shop, buys a malt liquor and a lottery ticket which he doesn't win, and pours Frog some liquor. As he's about to leave, he spots a black car kidnapping an injured man. At home, Fontaine stares at his brother's picture and later checks on his mom, who insists she's fine and doesn't step out. Fontaine then heads to Slick's place for his money. Slick is afraid to get closer to Fontaine because he heard of his death a day ago. Slick tries so hard explaining to Fontaine that he came for his money yesterday and got shot, but he doesn't believe, so he takes him to Yo-Yo since she witnessed everything. Yo-Yo says she saw Fontaine being killed and the car driving away. She remembers the car, so she takes them to where she last saw it. They break into the house and search for traces of any human. Fontaine finds an elevator in the house and jumps into it. Slick is scared to join, but when Yo-Yo does, he follows too. They arm themselves before they step out of the elevator. In a room which looks like a laboratory, they find a white man with afro hair. He tries escaping when he sees them, but Fontaine is fast enough to stop him. While Fontaine is getting the man to reveal who he works for, Slick finds a white powdery substance on the shelf and tries it. Fontaine then leaves the man into Slick's care and goes around to gather information. The powder Slick tasted begins to manifest its effect on him. He laughs and giggles uncontrollably and accidentally shoots the man dead when Yo-Yo breaks a glass. Before they leave the house, they find a dead body with the exact looks of Fontaine lying in another room. Yo-Yo takes them to her grandma's house for safety. Fontaine doesn't want to stay. He wants to search for the people behind the body he saw in the house. Yo-Yo succeeds in convincing him to wait for the day because he's late, but the next morning when she wakes up, Fontaine is nowhere to be found. Fontaine storms the house with his friends, but they find nothing. Even the elevator which took them underground wasn't there anymore. He angrily drives back to Yo-Yo and tells her that everything they saw in the house has mysteriously vanished. Slick complains of hunger, so they head to a restaurant to eat some fried chicken and discuss what they'll be doing next. While they are eating, they begin to laugh non-stop. Slick is a little confused because he has never seen Fontaine laugh in years. He looks around only to realize that everyone eating the chicken is laughing uncontrollably. He then remembers that the white powder he tasted in the lab made him laugh this way too. Just then, a waiter shows up with the same features as the man in the laboratory, so Yo-Yo decides to fetch some information from him. Yo-Yo complains about the soda and chooses to file a complaint. When the white man takes her to his office, she begins to flirt with him, and when she succeeds in that, she asks him to get her some chicken. Immediately he leaves, Yo-Yo closes the window and goes through his stuff to find something. She finds a recording about the effects of the white powder and cameras all over the neighborhood where their products are purchased and the streets. Yo-Yo thinks someone is conducting experiments on them. While they're discussing how to find the people behind all these, they spot a van delivering goods to the restaurant where they ate the chicken. Fontaine follows the van when it leaves the restaurant. After minutes of driving, the van stops by a salon. Yo-Yo and Fontaine enter the salon while Slick stays at the parking lot to search through the van. He finds a card and keeps it. In the salon, Yo-Yo realizes that the perming cream has also been mixed with something that makes the user dull. Slick opens up the boxes behind the van and is shocked to see that they make grape drinks too. The distributors finish with their work in the salon and head to a different location with Slick at the back. Isaac, Fontaine's killer, stops Yo-Yo and Fontaine at the entrance and threatens to kill him again since he resurrected the first time. While they're talking, Yo-Yo notices that Slick has been trapped in the van and they are driving away. Yo-Yo ends their conversation with Isaac and they hurry to follow the van. They find the van parked near a church and waste no time in setting Slick free. He shows them the card he found and they all head to the church. In the church, they notice that everyone in there is kind of hyper after taking the grape drink, which was served to them as communion. When the church closes, they stay behind to fetch more info. Surprisingly, they uncover another elevator beneath the altar after inserting the card Slick found in the van. Underground, they find numerous white scientists and workers conducting experiments on blacks. In another part of the facility, they find several cloned bodies including Slick's and Fontaine's. Fontaine angrily pulls out his gun and fires at his clone. This activates the security alarms, so they rush out of the place. They head to a nightclub, but it isn't safe there either. The DJ cranks up a mesmerizing tune that enchants the crowd and incites them to pursue Yo-Yo, Fontaine, and Slick. Fontaine steals someone's car, and just about a minute drive away from the club, the car breaks down and the hypnotized people catch up with them. They all freeze and back off when Nixon, their superior, shows up with Fontaine's clone named Chester. Nixon explains that their intentions are to keep the United States united and nothing more. They're cloning blacks to promote peace since most of the crimes committed are from them. He gives Fontaine and his friends two options, either to back off or get killed by Chester. When Fontaine decides not to choose any, he freezes his moment and manipulates him. He then frees them and warns them to keep their distance. After this incident, Fontaine makes up his mind not to go after them anymore. Yo-Yo tries hard to convince him, but he makes it clear to her that he's never going back to the facility. Fontaine continues with his daily routine, eating chicken from the restaurant, buying liquor, and a lottery ticket which he always loses. This time around, he scratches all the circles and realizes that there's no win on it. Frog tells him that's how they make their money, he's always going to lose. Fontaine then pours him some liquor and heads home to check up on his mom. He has only been hearing her voice for some days now and wishes to see her. His mom tells him not to open the door, but he doesn't listen and breaks into her room. He is hurt to see only a sound recording machine in the room. She has been gone for days, and all this while, her voice is the only thing Fontaine has been communicating with. Later, Fontaine goes to visit Slick. Meanwhile, Yo-Yo is seen delivering an envelope to the government about the activities she, Fontaine, and Slick saw. Just when she turns to leave, a black car drops by and some people capture her. Slick and Fontaine drive around the neighborhood looking for Yo-Yo. Biddy says she saw her near the post, and later, a black car came for her. Just then, Fontaine realizes that they are going to make a clone of her too. Slick suggests that they storm the whole place alone, so he goes to see Isaac so that he can help with his men. Fontaine thinks it's a good idea, but when they go to Isaac's yard, he kills Fontaine and dumps him on the streets. Since the people in the facility have eyes all over the neighborhood, they see Fontaine's body and take him to the facility to make another clone. Fontaine's clone is successfully made, and he wakes up the next morning in his bed. When he goes to the shop for his liquor, Slick makes him unconscious and ties him up, so that there won't be two of himself working at the same time. It turns out that his shooting and the entire scenario were orchestrated, as cameras were surveilling their every move, prompting them to act strategically. While Fontaine is moving things in the facility, Slick together with Isaac visit the shop Fontaine buys his liquor from and use the elevator in there to get to the facility. As soon as they gain entry, they storm the whole place up. Yo-Yo is restrained for a new perm experiment. She pretends to be affected by the cream and later knocks the men down and takes her wig off. Slick finds Yo-Yo and they both head to the release of the clones. Fontaine is confronted by Chester and beaten up until he can't take it anymore. Chester then takes Fontaine to the man with the whole cloning idea, an older version of Fontaine. Nixon attacks Slick and Yo-Yo. As it happens, Fontaine is the clone of this old version. Old Fontaine started all these because of the death of his only brother, Ronnie. Ronnie was killed for no reason, so it's his goal to make better versions of people to promote peace. Slick attacks Nixon, and since he isn't skilled enough, Nixon overpowers him. Yo-Yo then has no choice than to give up. She tosses her gun to the other side and pleads with Nixon not to kill Slick. When she gets closer, she realizes that the Slick on the floor is Slick's clone, so she begins to distract Nixon to buy the real Slick more time. The real Slick then appears behind Nixon and puts a bullet in his head. Fontaine manages to get Chester to kill old Fontaine. Before long, the activities of the facility are broadcast live on the news. Slick, Yo-Yo, and Fontaine then decide to start a new life in Memphis. The end.